The sun had just set below the mountain range as Emily walked back to her car from the petrol station in the small town of Cedar Creek. She was exhausted, having just completed a long day at work, but relieved that she was finally on her way home. As she approached her car, Emily noticed a man standing next to it. He was tall, with a scruffy beard and long hair, and was wearing a ragged leather jacket. "Can I help you?" Emily asked warily. The man didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed her by the arm and pulled her towards him. Emily screamed, but he covered her mouth with his hand. "Shh, don't make a sound," he whispered in her ear. "You're coming with me." Emily struggled against him, but he was too strong. He forced her into the back seat of her car and tied her up with rope. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she realized the gravity of the situation. She was being kidnapped. The man got into the driver's seat and drove off into the night, taking Emily to a remote area outside of a small town called Pine Valley. Emily tried to keep track of their route, but she quickly lost her sense of direction. After what felt like hours, the man stopped the car and pulled her out. They were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense forests. The man dragged Emily into a small cabin hidden deep in the woods. Inside, she saw several other people tied up and gagged. Some were crying, while others were staring blankly ahead. Emily's stomach turned as she realized that she was not alone. Days turned into weeks, and Emily and the others were subjected to horrific torture and abuse. The man, who they eventually learned was called Jacob, would come into the cabin wearing a mask and pick one person to torture at a time. Sometimes he would cut off their fingers or toes, and other times he would whip them until they passed out. Through all the pain and horror, Emily managed to stay alive. She made a connection with another victim, a woman named Sarah. Together, they hatched a plan to escape. They waited until Jacob was out hunting for food, and then they managed to untie themselves and run out of the cabin. They ran through the woods not knowing where they were going until they finally stumbled upon a road. They flagged down a passing car, and the driver took them to the nearest police station in the town of Riverdale. The man who had kidnapped them was eventually caught and sent to prison in the nearby city of Silver Springs. But the trauma that Emily had endured would stay with her for the rest of her life. Even after all these years, Emily still has nightmares about the cabin and Jacob. She wakes up in a cold sweat, unable to shake the feeling that he is still out there, waiting to kidnap another victim. Emily has since moved to a new town called Ashwood, but she remains vigilant and cautious, always looking over her shoulder, afraid of the dark corners and hidden dangers that lurk in the shadows.